very special day today, and I'd like to welcome you all to Veterans Historical Plaza. Today, we're gathering here to honor our founding city council members and our first mayor, also our appointed planning and parks commissioners. These people created the very foundation which the great city of Santa Clarita rests upon. Without their diligent, visionary, and detailed work, we would not have the great city we have today. We have placed in the corner of the historic Veterans Plaza foundation cornerstone bricks, acknowledging the amazing work of our city's leaders that did the startup and established the visionary plan this city would follow. It is important to capture the thoughts and observations of these remarkable people. Our goal today is to honor them for their service and create an oral history for future generations to have and to use. I would now proudly like to ask Howard P. Buck McKeon, who was our first city's mayor, to come up as soon as I read a couple of comments about him. Howard P. Buck McKeon was our mayor. He was a businessman with great character and strong corporate skills. He took the reins of leadership. He directed the city into the City Hall building that we have today. Mayor McKeon was and is a strong advocate for education. He went on to become our congressman and has diligently represented the Santa Clarita Valley since 1992 in Washington, D.C. I proudly would like to ask our congressman to please come up and say a few words about the founding and operation of our city. Thank you.
Maureen, thank you. It is great to be here. You know, when I first heard this park was going to be built here, I thought it's a real waste of money. Let me tell you, whoever made the decision, and I was wrong. This is fantastic. It's a great park, a great gathering place, a really good expenditure of funds. I think it was about $500,000. Well done. Anyway, I apologize but I've been wrong on a lot of things. That was just one of them. You know, on election night, I'll go back a little further. When this thing first happened, I was not on the formation committee. Lou was, and Lou called me up on Thursday afternoon and said, well, it's going to be on the ballot. And he had been kind of keeping me informed of what was going on, and I thought he was going to run for city council, and he said, I'm not going to do it, but I want you to do it. And all you have to do is go down, get signed up, get the paperwork in, get 25 people to sign it, get it back in by 5 o'clock tomorrow night, down somewhere on the other side of LA. And so yeah, that sounds great. If I do something quick without thinking about it, it's probably best, because when I think, I get all screwed up. But I went down and got the paperwork that night and talked to my brothers, talked to my wife, family, and decided we'd do it. So the next morning I went down and got the paper early in the morning. I came back and met our son, was just coming in from his mission in Pennsylvania. We all met at the Burbank airport, and Patricia came up and said, we got a call, and we don't live in the city, so can't do it. Fine. We went to the store and we were having lunch and talking about missionary experiences. We got another call from Jill Klagic. She said, no, we made a mistake. You are in the city. We'd like you to run. So it's about 2 o'clock. I took off and tried to gather signatures. Patricia and her dad wrote up a ballot statement. We met down here at San Fernando Road, and I just got down there just in time. That's where I met Dennis and Linda, and probably some others that were getting their paperwork in just at the last minute. Anyway, it was a fantastic experience. We had 25 people running, and we were focusing on should we be a city, and the people overwhelmingly wanted local government. And on election night, 5 of us were gathered around, clapping each other on the back. We won. And Dennis stuck his head in and said, no, I won. And I don't even remember who the other guy was now, but next day, Dennis won and he didn't. And we had a meeting, boardroom of Howard and Phil's, and somebody said, well, you got the most votes, so you be the first mayor, and then we'll rotate it by votes. So it was me and Jan and Joanne and Carl and Dennis. And we started, and I said, okay, fine. You get us a place to meet, you get us a city manager, you get us a city attorney, and we started the city. About a month later, I think we had the big meeting over at Cal Arts in their gym, and everything was going just great. And then Carl gets up and proposes that we protect the oak trees in the city. Who's going to say no in front of a few thousand people? So we protected the oak trees. Great thing, Carl. One night I was out trimming our oak trees. I couldn't get the motorhome around in the driveway, and so we were out cutting. I cut a big pile of branches. I go in, and Patricia fixed me some dinner before the city council meeting. She puts the signal down in front of me. I look, and here's a guy in handcuffs for cutting branches off an oak tree, down the street from me. I said, why didn't you show me that before I cut those branches? I was cutting smaller ones, Ken. They were within the limits, I'm sure. Anyway, it's been living here for 40-some years. The friends we've made, our children grew up here. It's been just a fantastic place, and becoming a city. Every time I drive down Canyon Country and I see the grass along the north side of Soledad, I said, I helped do that. And when I see the few red buses that are still left, I say, I wanted red buses. Anyway, it's been a fantastic experience working with the council, the people in the city, and then watching the leadership as it's grown and the things that have happened in the city. Great experience. Thank you all for the opportunity to serve in that position, and also for the opportunity to serve now in Congress. This park, I'm now the ranking member in Armed Services, so when I see these flags up here, it's great to be reminded of the troops and to be reminded of our veterans and all that they do, our men and women in uniform, what they do for us and what the veterans have done for us. Thank you very much.
We can see why the congressman went on to Congress. He is a great delegator, and we thank you, Congressman McKeon, for all you do for all of us. I'm going to make some comments on all the council members, and then any of you that will want to come up and speak, I would love you to add some oral history. Jan Haidt is a strong businesswoman and a Navy veteran. She owned and operated a unique bookstore in Santa Clarita. A strong environmentalist, she became our first lady mayor. Due to her work, 3 Metrolink stations were built. The Jan Haidt Newhall Metrolink Station, the Santa Clarita Metrolink Station, and the Villa Princesa Metrolink Station, which was built in 2 weeks after the '94 earthquake. A visionary and a strong advocate for public transportation, Jan also loved oaks, open natural lands, and cohesive planning. Carl Boyer, a history and government teacher, a writer, a humanitarian extraordinaire. Carl believed in strong local governance, and he still does. Carl served as our mayor and was elected 3 times to the city council. Carl appointed me to the city's first Parks Commission, for which I am eternally grateful. And I learned from him. He is my mentor and my friend. Joanne Darcy, a woman of extraordinary people skills. Joanne led the Chamber of Commerce, and in fact, in 1978, she dedicated the first home of the Santa Clarita Valley Chamber of Commerce on this site in the historic Pardee House that originally sat here. As a matter of fact, we're right about standing where we did the party. Joanne served as a senior deputy to our 5th District Los Angeles County Supervisor for many years and was named Woman of the Year. Joanne served as mayor 3 times. Her skills in serving seniors is legendary. The city named the Canyon Country Library for her and placed a plaque in her honor for founding the Walk of Western Stars in Old Town Newhall. She is loved and treasured by all her friends and family. Dennis Kuntz, a man who came from public service, deeply committed to public safety, and a retired fireman. He was very concerned with children and a strong advocate to create a Parks Commission. Dennis has deep roots and commitment to Santa Clarita and has continued his work in public service with local charities since. I would like to ask any of the council members to come up. I know, Carl, you have to say something. Come on up.
I think that something that a great many of us have forgotten is that we voted for self-government twice before we became a city. Indeed, it was extremely difficult to convince the people of the Santa Clarita Valley that we really had to have a city because they wanted to make a third try for county government. And I am fervently looking forward to the day when the City Council of the City of Santa Clarita will work with the other cities of Los Angeles County to give us and to give them county government which is of a reasonable size. In the meantime, I want to say that I am very, very proud of what the councils have accomplished over the years, particularly in the area of beautification. Somebody once said to me that, well, Carl, you know, you're looking to build Beverly Hills North. And there are a lot of places in this city that look like Beverly Hills North today that were pretty ratty-tatty under the administration of Los Angeles County. We've had some wonderful people, and I must express my admiration for Buck and Jan and Joanne and Dennis and all the others who've served on the city council over the years. Sometimes it's not an easy job, but they've gone out and they've done it, and it's, I think, very much to their credit. Thank you very much.
Dennis, you want to come up and say a few words? Thank you, Dennis Kuntz.
Thank you. I want to correct you. I'm a retired fire captain.
That's even better.
I really enjoyed being a city councilman, working with Buck and Joanne. What a sweet lady she is. And also Carl, he's our historian, and he normally gets it all right. At least that's what I have found out. But this is a beautiful town that we've all worked on, and I've been very proud of the current city council people, that almost all of them, they've done such a good job, and I'm really proud of this town. And we are able to appoint our commissions. I happen to be able to appoint, my commissioner was the Parks, was Linda Storley at the time, and I've enjoyed cityhood. And anything else I can do, I'm ready to work. Thank you.
We all know that our town loves its firemen and its fire captains, most particularly. We got that one right. I did want to recognize the people that we have lost that cannot be here, that did a wonderful job. And so I will comment on them at this time. Jeanette Sherrar was a dear friend to Joanne Darcy and many others here, and a very dedicated lady. And she was appointed by Joanne to the Planning Commission. Jeanette was a very long-time resident and very committed to the community. She once came to a meeting extremely ill so that there could be a critical vote done. She knew dedication like I've never seen before. She passed all too young from cancer from us, and she was a very valiant lady and sorely missed. And hopefully we'll be able to find her family and let them know that we've put a brick in her honor here. Louis Brathwaite. an amazing man. Carl Boyer appointed Louis Brathwaite. They had run for city council together. Carl said they'd knocked on every door in Santa Clarita, at least once. Louis was a vigilant man, greatly concerned with promoting the arts. He was a man ahead of his time. He loved his family and was deeply devoted to his wife Mary and his children. He loved to create. He was passionate about the details of planning, and we lost him way too young. He would love our Santa Clarita Performing Arts Center. Todd Longshore. Todd was appointed by our first mayor, Howard P. Buck McKeon, to the Parks Commission. Buck made a great choice. Todd loved kids and youth sports like nothing else. He was the most generous, extraordinary man, father, and husband. He served the longest on the Parks Commission. After Buck went on to Congress and I was elected to City Council, I appointed Todd. He was strong on everything that makes Santa Clarita great. I was honored to serve with him, and Todd was a peacemaker, and everybody loved him. He was my friend, and we lost him way too soon. The city acknowledged his great legacy by naming Todd Longshore Park in Canyon Country just a few years ago. And those were the three men and women that we lost. I will now speak to the planning commissioners, and then I would invite them to come up and put in some oral history. Pat Meduno could not be here today. Pat's always busy doing something. Pat served as our first chair of the Planning Commission. A very talented businessman, he now serves on the Los Angeles County Planning Commission and still is working on keeping Santa Clarita unique and beautiful. Rita Garassi, a lady of too many talents to mention. She has made a difference in planning our city and given endlessly and tirelessly to Santa Clarita. She is a former Woman of the Year. Rita is not only a gifted planner, she is an amazing campaign manager. Rita supports education and consistently gives her time, money, and talent to create excellence here in Santa Clarita. And she's just the best there is to know. Connie Warden Roberts. Connie Warden Roberts served on our first planning commission. A brilliant planner. Connie knows roads like no one else in Santa Clarita. She's been at the forefront of roads and transportation, leading the charge to keep Santa Clarita moving smoothly. Connie is a former Woman of the Year. Connie Warden Roberts was also a leader in city formation. She has continued to serve our valley on issue after issue, tirelessly working for quality of life issues. She has received numerous accolades from all levels of government. I would ask the planning commissioners to come up and say a few words. Rita, come on up.
I'll tell you, it certainly is amazing to be here, and I've heard so many references. First thing I want to say is that there was a reference to the fact that I was a campaign manager. I'm a campaign manager today, but my first campaign was a campaign that you may be aware of, and that was for the first mayor of the city of Santa Clarita in 1987. That was Howard P. Buck McKeon, the gentleman who just addressed you. I think that was a wonderful campaign. He tells it sort of at a superficial level, but some of the decisions that were made at that time were absolutely critical to the incorporation and so vital to what happened in the future of this community. And that was, we were at a turning point. I had moved here with my husband, Lou Garassi, in 1975. Over the 10 years leading up to incorporation, we could slowly see that Santa Clarita, a wonderful place, a wonderful valley with great ambiance, with great opportunities for the future, was losing its identity in the snarl of what Los Angeles called urban sprawl. I spent a lot of time working for LA County on the LA County Planning Commission, general plans, get on the car, I'd drive down to City Hall, and to tell you the truth, they really didn't even know where we were. And people like Carl Boyer. Carl Boyer had championed the fight for independence out here and local control for many years. It was getting to be increasingly apparent that if we didn't act, we were going to be lost in a sea of homes and no identity. I commend the first community that made the vote, and I commend the first city council for this reason. It doesn't seem very complex to incorporate a city today because we're doing it. But I'll tell you, it took courage. You don't speak up and say something as radical as, well, we're going to pull away. They told us that it would be the end of Western civilization. We would not have a fire department, we wouldn't have sheriffs, we wouldn't be able to get up. And the first day that the city was incorporated, we woke up and it was snowing. All those who remember that were quite fascinated by the fact that our first city council's chore was to find snowplows. Remember that, guys? That was a little tricky. We overcame a lot of hurdles, and we had 25, there was the illusion that we had the reference to 25 folks that decided to run for city council. Some of those folks thought that they put Santa Clarita on the map by building an amusement park. One guy actually turned out to have a criminal record. There was every combination and personality involved. The people in this valley chose 5. And they chose, in my opinion, the best 5. They sorted it out, and we've been doing it ever since. I'm thrilled to have been a part of it. And just one more last word. I never wanted to be a planning commissioner. I figured we'd elect a fine city council, I'd step aside and move on. Buck McKeon, turnaround is fair play. In his office, sort of commemorating the wonderful fact that now we had a city, he was the top vote getter. He was now to be our mayor. I congratulated him, turned to walk out the office, and he said, no, he says, you're my city planning commissioner. And I said, I don't know about that. I don't think so. I don't believe in, getting involved. He said, no. He says, you got to take the job. What an honor. We did the oak tree ordinance. We did a lot of the initial planning that led the way for the general plan to be enacted later. And I congratulate all of us now today. Continue to vote. Be involved in your local government. It does matter. We matter, and it doesn't matter if you don't care. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rita Garassi. Great insight into that time. Connie Warden-Roberts, you want to come up and speak a little bit?
And thank you, Noreen. I didn't know I was going to be invited to be up here in front of you, but it's a great honor. I was especially privileged, and still am to this day, that we were able to create the biggest city ever created, particularly in California. And here we are, and we're twice that big today, or damn near. But at any rate, we are a wonderful city, and it took the responsible leadership of people like you who are in the audience today, and your caring commitment to make this happen. And I'm very proud to have been a part of it, and delighted to have been a part of the formation of the city of Santa Clarita. It's a great honor.
I would, at this time, like to say a few words about the Parks Commission, my favorite thing. Mike Lyons was the chair of the first Parks Commission. Mike is a staunch supporter of preservation of our valley's beautiful oaks. He is a lifelong resident. He is one of the Lyons family. We all know Lyons Avenue. He is a Lyons. His dedication to creation and preservation of our urban forest is legendary. He loved being involved on the Parks Commission and serving the community, and he still serves the community. He was amazing to work with. He did a great job as our first chair, and we were honored to serve with him. Jefferson Wheeler served on the first Parks Commission, and Jeff is a parks professional. He spent his life building and maintaining beautiful parks for Los Angeles County. He brought his time and talent to our city, and all Santa Clarita has benefited. I loved working with Jeff, a consummate professional always. We had parks to build, trails to plan, open space to dream of. Jeff helped make it all a reality. Linda Storley. Linda Storley was on our first Parks Commission, a lady who is a dedicated educator. She brought a strong passion that she has for kids, and she made them a priority in the city Parks and Recreation. She loves helping kids and continues to dedicate her efforts for our youth today. Linda and I had a great time together. She came up with some of the more interesting things. Things like, could you keep the parks open so the kids could be there till midnight? It was fun. We had a lot of discussion about all the things that kids want. She saw their side, and that was important. I would now like to invite up the Parks Commissioners. Mike?
Like Connie, I didn't know I was going to be asked to speak, but it was a real privilege to be the first chair of the Parks Commission with Lorraine and Todd and Linda and Jeff, and I can't tell you how what a thrill and joy that was. I want to, with Lorraine, the loss of Todd Longshore really hit me. And he was a great guy, a great moderator in the group because we all had a lot of opinions. But Todd was always the one there to level things out. It was always good to have him there. A couple of things I wanted to mention is that early on, the Parks Commission appealed to the council to plan ahead for an aquatics center. We wanted an Olympic-sized pool somewhere in this valley, and we talked to the various councilmen and met before them a couple times and said, just put $100,000 down a year for a while until we get this thing. And eventually we got it. The other thing, of course, was skateboarding, and that was another thing that we, early on, it was like in the first year, we said, we've got to do something about this. These kids are riding all over the curbs and everything, and that was another thing we got accomplished. On the oak tree matter, we worked hard to get the oak tree ordinance put in place and to get the oaks sort of a theme for this community. And we've got a couple of them that have been planted right here in this park that weren't here before and all around the city. And everyone said, well, they'll grow so slow. Well, I dare you to go up Bouquet Canyon now and see those 40-foot trees standing there and other places around the city. So I think we've come a long way, and it's been a real joy to be a part of it. Thank you.
See, when they don't know they're going to speak, they come up with all the real interesting tidbits. That's the good part. So I hope you'll all keep sharing this afternoon. Jefferson Whaler, would you please come up?
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't know I was going to speak either, but I think I had a most unique opportunity when Joanne asked me to be her commissioner, because I did work in the field of Parks and Recreation. That was my livelihood, but it's also a passion I had to work with the public. So I had the opportunity to work in a new city. We had a city council that had no idea what a Parks Commissioner did. They had no idea what a Parks Department should be, what it needed. But one thing I'll say for all 5 of our council people, they did listen to the commission when they suggested things. And we suggested some strange things, and we had some long meetings. But I think the opportunity to help develop a department as great as our Parks Department is now was probably one of the highlights of my career, and I had 35 years in the profession. But I think we should be very proud of our staff. I think the parks that developed, what we're sitting on right here, is an example of it. And I think our original council allowed our commission to dream, as Mike was saying, with the Oak Tree, with aquatic centers, but they wanted the parks and they wanted to serve the people and not have to drive to LA. So I think that was one thing I enjoyed more than anything. You actually could walk down the hall and talk to the people that made the votes to make things happen here. You didn't have to drive 45 miles to the Hall of Administration. So Joanne, I thank you publicly now for allowing the opportunity to serve this community, and I thoroughly enjoyed it the full time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Linda Storley, come Come on down.
I had the unique opportunity of being part of the formation committee. I didn't know a lot about cities. I had a degree in political science, and I actually only joined so I could learn some stuff so I could turn around and teach it. Got pretty enthused when it sounded like I might be able to run for city council, and we had a good run. We had 25 candidates that desperately wanted a city, and I learned how important cities were and local government was. I'm still teaching government at Canyon High School. I'm so proud of my city that sometimes my students come to me afterwards and say, "You really mean that, don't you?" I said, "I really mean it. This is my city. I helped make it. I'm so proud of it." I also need to thank my city councilman, my husband, who appointed me as a Parks Commissioner. The Parks Commission was fun. It was a way to serve. When I'm asked today about cityhood and about cities, and my students are probably the only ones that come in mass to city council meetings, sit down and leave. I look at our city and I'm so thankful that we did what we did probably before people thought we couldn't do it. I live in an area right now outside of the city of Santa Clarita. I live in the Tesoro area, which is looking to annex, and people start to talk in the HOA, and unfortunately I do tend to go a little overboard and tout how wonderful it is to be part of this city. I could not be more proud than to have been part of this whole formation and the city that we live in. Thank you very much.
When we moved out, we moved into the Emblem Homes up in Bouquet Canyon, 1964. And they told us the next year the Cross Valley Connector would be built. And I think it might be finished this year. How many years is that? 40, 64, 2009, 45 years. The Cross Valley Connector. And you know, there was at one time the 405 down the San Fernando Valley. There were supposed to be 3 of those, and Jerry Brown got rid of them out of the planning. Would sure have been nice if they'd have gone through with that plan and had another way for us to get out of this valley, down below, down to the valley below. We learned in 94, the earthquake, how we were cut off. And we've had other things, the floods and other things that have cut us off from the other valley. It'd be nice. I know it probably politically impossible now to run a road through those mountains, but it would have been a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
If people would plan out a little bit further.
I can remember when we went to the state and looked at what the planning was going to be for our city up here. They didn't have anything really. In fact, they weren't on the drawing board. Most of it that didn't get on the drawing board until about 10 years or maybe 5.5 years after we were formed. And it was kind of interesting to find out that they really hadn't planned anything for the northern part of Los Angeles County. And those are the things I can remember, and I also remember dancing in the streets when we were campaigning.
I can remember wanting a city for a long time before I ever decided to run. And I'm not sorry a bit. I think it was one of the best things we ever did because it brought the people together. It made us stronger and bigger and more unified. And that's where progress came from, because we could do it together as a group rather than singly and have to fight people alone with just a small group instead of a big one. And everybody was so grateful when we got elected. I mean, they were just so nice to us. We never had any problems, really. And just working with everybody and having everybody keep congratulating us was just neat, you know. So I'm really happy to be a part of it, and I'm glad that I was part of appointing some of the fine people that have been here since and are still with us. And I just love you all. I really do. Thank you.
I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that the committee that was working on incorporating the city, and I'm not talking necessarily about the Santa Clarita Formation Committee, which really organized in 1985, but the earlier committees, all the different years that we worked on it over a period of 18 years, we kind of were looked upon by the County of Los Angeles as representing the people of the Santa Clarita Valley, and it was really a situation where we had to work in a very positive fashion to try to solve a lot of the problems that were out here at the same time while pushing forward to form the city of Santa Clarita. And in a sense, I guess, a lot of people just didn't realize that it was a two-pronged effort. It was really an effort for good government. It was not an effort to build a political career. And I've got to say that I'm awful glad, Buck, that you were the one that ran for Congress and not me.
I really love it, but I tell people back in Washington that a lot of times people talk about a tough vote. This is a tough vote. This is a tough vote. I said, you don't really know what tough votes are. I served on a school board for 9 years, a city council for a little over 4 years. Those are tough votes because the people in the audience, generally the issues are pretty emotional. I mean, when you get one of those, you're going to close a road or you're going to do. I think we were fortunate. The first council, we were more working on getting organized and getting things started. We didn't get into a lot of the really controversial things that have come along later, which just happens, with growth. But when you get those situations, I saw them on the school board. You've got your friends in the audience, your neighbors, and you're going to make half of them like you and half of them mad at you. And that's tough. Those are tough votes. In Washington, people don't, a lot of times at home here, don't really even know what you're doing. Here they see it. Every day they see it. And so local leadership, very important. And I think it was a fantastic experience to be part of the first council. And I remember Fred Bien said, the way the council will be in years to come, the way the city will be the tone that you set now, that first council. And I think that'll never change. It'll never be taken away. We had that opportunity and it was great. It was great working with all of you guys.
I can also remember how late we stayed up too.
Oh, yes.
So I don't know what, I think it's up as late as 1 o'clock in the morning. And we did it often. And I really enjoyed it. And we had a great council and let's do it again.
The process of actually creating the city was when LAFCO went down and signed off on the process. I believe it was about 4 p.m. That afternoon.
That was the 15th of December.
15th of December, 1987.
Yeah.
The first ordinance ever passed was indeed oak tree protection. It wasn't on the agenda that way, but it happened to be that I got the word during the intermission of the council meeting that a couple of our local entrepreneurs had ordered that oak trees be chopped down the next day because they had learned that the oak tree ordinance was on the agenda for the next evening, and they wanted to get these oak trees out of the way. So I asked the council to move it up to number 1 on the agenda, and we had an oak tree ordinance even before we adopted the existing ordinances of the County of Los Angeles, which is the traditionally ordinance number 1. And Fred Bien went out in his dress shoes in the snow the next morning with a couple of deputy sheriffs who backed him up. At that point, the sheriff's department didn't have a copy of the oak tree ordinance, and so Fred had to go out and tell the guys that were out there with their chainsaws to knock it off and let the oak trees stand.
I was shocked when Carl did that, but he should have always the credit for that. And it like I said earlier, who was going to vote against it? It was unanimous, and I think that's something we can all be very proud of, because there are a lot of oak trees in this valley, and a lot of them wouldn't have stayed. So that was very important. In fact, I had 25 on our lot, and they're all still there. We don't live there anymore, but they're still there. And in fact, when we were building our home, we had one kind of a scrub oak in the front. And one of my brothers, I think, said, you ought to cut that out because it was just like a bush. I said, no, I want to keep that. And it's a big tree now. We had probably 10 or 15 heritage oaks on our property. But that one now is a big multi-trunk tree. So, you know, I think one of the things we started planting trees, and I don't know how many trees have been planted now, but it's thousands in the city. And it's a much prettier place, traffic flow. I mean, we still have a lot of traffic, a lot of problems, but it's a whole lot better than it would have been. One of the first things we did was at the road over there, Soledad Canyon, just east of Sand Canyon. Remember, we had a really bad accident, but we widened that road, had to cut the mountain back. That was a very good thing for safety. We added a lot more sheriff's cars, and we had a little problem right at first because a new city, they kind of transfer deputies that they want to, you know, get out of other places, and you end up with them here. And remember, we had some problems where they were rousting some of the kids, and we had to have a meeting with Sheriff Block, and a big change was made. And you know, that was an early thing we had to deal with. But a lot of good experiences, and place has grown. Leadership has come in, and it's a great place to live. And as big as it is, you still have the small town feeling. People are still in their communities, still have their homeowner association, their little league parks, and that city park was a tremendous thing. You know how that's been. Other parks, that park up in Canyon Country, a lot of good things.
For the libraries too. We
Yeah,
wanted more
nice big one
libraries.
there in Canyon
Yeah. So I know I was really a big part of that because I love libraries and they're so necessary. But I really love this city, and I'd do anything if they asked me, you know, that I could within reason and within my pocketbook. But I'm just proud to be here, to have done as much as I did, and have all the people still with us.
One of the first things we had to do is to Plum Canyon. We owned 300 feet of Plum Canyon, and they were getting ready to set it up for a single lane. And I was the one chosen to go in and discuss it with Antanovich's and also the developer. And we were able to, because of the 300 feet that we owned, that we were able to convince them that it had to be a 2-lane, 4-lane road. And it had to be that way before occupancy within the homes that were being built. And we succeeded in doing that.
Yeah, I had the advantage of working for Mike Antonovich too then.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped a lot. And, you know, I could carry things easy to him, and he'd listen. And therefore, he'd listen when people came to the council meeting and when they went down Los Angeles. So it all worked together. I wasn't any problem. I think some people thought it might be an adverse thing, but it wasn't, never. It's always a pro.
One of the points that probably ought to be made is that there was a lot of criticism of the fact that Joanne was working for county supervisor at the same time that she was a city council member. And I never saw any indication whatsoever that she didn't have the heart to be for what the city needed. She was there for us all the time, and I think people need to know that.
Joanne was always the city of Santa Clarita, and we knew that.
I served on the city's first Parks Commission, appointed by Councilman Boyer, and I had a great privilege to work with Jeff Wheeler, Mike Lyons, Linda Storley, and Todd Longshore. And today with us is Todd's lovely wife, Deanne. We lost Todd a few years ago, so it's important for Deanne to be here. I had the great privilege of being appointed by Carl Boyer, and he called me at my home and said, "You put in an application." And I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Well, in 15 minutes, I'm interviewing 5 people at a restaurant. You can show up and interview with them." And I had no time to prepare. And he did another really interesting thing. He had us all vote for each other on a scale. So I was basically picked by the other people. So we had to give a speech and talk about what our visions were. Well, my visions go back a really long way because I've been here most of my life. And I wanted to do a comprehensive trail system. I wanted to build an open space green belt around the city. I wanted to have the best parks in the nation. And when I was put on the Parks Commission, I got to work with the very best team that you could have to accomplish. And we all had very unique skills that we brought to the table. And it was pure joy and a lot of elbow grease because we didn't even have a parks director when we started. We had to create everything and we had to come up with it. That may be why so many things got done. We didn't have anybody writing us in. But we did. We just went and talked to our council and they listened. And Todd talked to Congressman, now Congressman Keehan, then Mayor Buck McKeon, and Linda talked to Councilman Kuntz, and Jeff went to Joanne Darcy, and I went to Carl, and it really worked. It worked great, and we were very fortunate.
I was honored to have been a part of the original effort to form the city and to have been a part of the leadership of the committee that originally formed and talked to the people about why we needed to form a city, and we became the largest city ever created, not to the best of our knowledge in this country. Not that there aren't many more that are bigger, but they didn't start out with 125,000 people. And it was a great honor to have been a part of the effort to form the city and to have been on the very first planning commission for the city of Santa Clarita.
The thing that I was thinking about today that was important as far as the city is concerned and its incorporation, and of course it gave the opportunity for those on the Planning Commission to actually act on the mandate that we had been given by the voters, which was to reclaim local control that was most pronounced in the eyes of the people in terms of how building would take place, where the roads would be, what kind of community our identities would have. I think that the thing that I'm the most proud of, and I think what's been continued by all of the councils after us, is the need to understand that we're not part of the urban sprawl. That, like so many of the cities in the East, we have an identity now. We are Santa Clarita. We have a place on the map. We have a name, and we have a purpose. It's not just an extension of a large county, and I think that spirit, people, if they can continue that, I think local control simply means that you have a voice, as was always intended by the founding fathers of this nation, that a voice and a vote could impact what your lives were like on a local level. So for that, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have been a part of that and to have been able to put in place a series of transitions and governments that will come after us that will perpetuate that into the future.
I was the first chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee and Commission, and served with Lorraine, of course, and Jeff and Linda and Todd, and it was a real honor to be the first chairman. We interestingly met, much like the city council met, one of our meetings were in homes and so forth, and one of them was in my office before we actually had a place to meet. And as Jeff reminded me, we violated the Brown Act early on by voting on something when we didn't supposed to, secret ballot. But it was, we had a lot of good ideas on the Parks Commission, and I was sort of the crazy Oaks guy, the Oaks Conservancy guy. I think that's why Jan Haidt selected me, because she was sort of on my page with that. And like I said, we had all of the different aspects. We had an actual parks professional here, and he had a lot of good ideas for us. And we had Linda, who was very much in favor of late night sports and so forth, and Todd. He was our rock and our very much for kids sports and everything. And then Lorene was my sort of Oaks person and helper on that regard. So it was a great opportunity and a lot of fun. And some of our visions are here today. Not this particular park, but I think of the aquatic center and the skate park and even the Central Park. I mean, no one knew at that time we were going to get that, but there it was. So it was a lot of fun. Great opportunity.
I think what I'm most pleased with, I had the opportunity as a professional to work with a new city to develop a recreation department that wouldn't have to be cookie stamped out. You have a parks department, you have recreation. We had the opportunity to recommend to our council's people what we visualize as a parks for the people of Santa Clarita. And I think we accomplished that. We weren't reined in the beginning because they didn't know what we were doing and the council didn't really know what they were doing yet. So we were allowed to dream, come up with ideas, as Linda says, midnight basketball. And this gave us a real opportunity to look at things, work with the idea of developing additional parks. Working with the county, I had the opportunity to open 3 of the current city parks, so I knew the process it took. It was a very drawn out thing. One of the first things this council chose to do with Canyon Country Park was to take the money from the county and get it built within a year. The county would still be planning it. So I was so pleased the council was so responsive to these types of things, knowing that the citizens of Santa Clarita need parks, they need open space. Dreaming of this little park here used to be the party house, it used to be the Pacific Bell, I think it was Boys and Girls Club, and now a beautiful facility like this right across from Hart Park. So this commission, and I think the councils that followed the first ones, have done such a terrific job, and I think they'll continue to do it, but it still needs the support of the people. You cannot just do it by yourself, 5 people on a commission or 5 people on a council. So I really think the first commission, and I thank Joanne for being so supportive as she did, and the 10 years I served, I would not give that for anything.
I was part of the formation committee, not early on, but during the end, I wanted to learn a little more about city government since I taught government, and I learned a lot. I consider myself blessed to have been part of the formation committee. I believe in my city. I get excited when I talk about my city. I'm hoping that they're going to annex every person that wants to be annexed into the city in, and there's no downside to it, so I would like to see that happen. I think we had a unique opportunity, and I know that every student that I have thinks that everything's already been invented and they have no chances to do anything new, but we started here 22 years ago with a city council that was new, and as you said, they didn't know a lot to tell us not to do, so we kind of got to do what we wanted to do, and unencumbered by a whole lot of red tape, we were able to go forward. We went out the first few months and we met with people in the parks and got their input, which they also told us what they thought about roads and what they thought about planning and what they thought the city should do. But we were kind of on the forefront of listening to what the new citizens of the city of Santa Clarita wanted. And it was a great opportunity to find out what was needed, and then we just got a chance. It's kind of like a wish list. We just got a chance to kind of do what we needed to do, and I'm very proud to have been part of the Parks Commission, working with some really cool people who really did have very unique qualities and very unique areas of their own expertise, and I think together we made a heck of a good Parks Commission.
It was just an honor and a privilege to see how you all work together, Planning Commission, Parks Commission, City Council members, mayors, staff, everyone, just how everyone worked together and just created this beautiful city. When Todd was first appointed by Buck McKeon, and he would come home from these meetings that you would have and tell me these crazy things you were going to do, I was the one who would say, I don't think so. When you talked about Central Park, I grew up out here, and that was always the onion fields. And when he would say there's going to be a big park there, I'm like, I don't think so. So I'm just amazed, honored, blessed to have known you all and to be the beneficiary of everything that you all have worked so hard for. And I'm proud to be from Santa Clarita. I've been here my whole life, and it was just an honor that Todd got to work with you. He was appointed by Buck McKeon when we just had a small child, and he wanted to become involved in the city, and he spent the rest of his life on the Parks Commission. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I really got involved with this whole city formation effort probably about 4 or 5 years before we became a city. because I was on the Transportation Committee for the Chamber of Commerce. Before we became a city, about the only form of government we really had here was the Chamber of Commerce. And I was on the Transportation Committee, and I saw that it was almost impossible to deal with the bureaucracy that was created by the County of Los Angeles. To get a traffic light, for example, it took 2 fatalities and 6 months of study and a year's worth of budget description, so it took 2 years to get something as simple as that. You're right. If the county was here today, Canyon Country would still be in the planning stages rather than having been built. I ended up chairing the City Feasibility Committee, and I was very kind of enjoying reading in the paper that the city spent I don't know how many $1,000s on a study for the annexation of the west side, and the county spent thousands and thousands of dollars for annexation and did their own study. Well, to form this city, a committee of 5 people did all of that work, and we got no compensation whatsoever. I put together the first tentative budget because we were told by the developers that the city could never afford to become a city. We could never afford to have all of the services. And we put together a budget, and right off the bat, it was obvious that there were funds available that would allow us to start doing some of the things that needed to get done very desperately. Roads, parks, recreation, just the ambiance that was really needed here, and an identity which we didn't really have. Now, you need to remember that we had very distinct communities, and the formation committee, the feasibility committee, was very conscious of the fact that Valencia sometimes didn't want to associate maybe with the other half of the town, and maybe Saugus felt that they were different from U-Haul. And there was some talk about, maybe one area should have a city, not the other. But it was amazing to me that people got together and they were able to agree to form one city. And I'm sorry, it's not the whole valley. Very, very sorry, it's not the whole valley. But formed the one city. And when it was first voted in, I really had some trepidation, because you always sort of think about, this can go wrong. I grew up in Chicago, and I know what governments can do, and there's always that danger. But I can say very honestly that I'm very pleased and very proud of the 22 years that this city and the councils that proceeded afterwards, what they have done. There's one little comment I want to make about, since this is for historical. Buck mentioned that I asked him to run for city council. That is true. But what he didn't say is that he turned around and asked Rita to run the campaign for him. In the process, Rita was the quiet individual in the background who did 90% of the planning and the strategy that really went into forming the city. I got up there and I talked and I told people, but she was the brains behind the whole operation and the vote and everything else. So I think, you deserved an awful lot of the credit.
Well, I'll tell you, as far as cityhood was concerned, I was absolutely amazed. The number of people it took to incorporate this city was overwhelming. In the end, there was such total support. I remember Dennis Kuntz. Dennis Kuntz, actually, you brought in a fire truck. He talked about being a fire captain. He brought in a fire truck who prayed up and down this town with a loudspeaker talking about incorporation. There was efforts on everybody's part, the formation committee, the vote. I think what I was responsible for and what I remember clearly is that we did everything ourselves. We talked about the fact that the formation committee looked at the budget. They did their type of, of planning and whatnot. Now things are very sophisticated. I don't know if you can ever get anything done with the bureaucracy in place. But one of the cute things that I remember is that it was down to this. We had a very small budget in terms of convincing the people to vote. The developers were somewhat opposed to incorporation. We raised a limited amount of funds. We got a very empathetic printing company to help us print materials. And Buck McKeon and I picked up information from the printers. We put it in little red tag envelopes, hauled it to the post office, and mailed it. And I will tell you that if that's a campaign, that's what democracy is all about. And that was it after the culmination of the work of so many, the formation committee, the candidates who won, the people who had the courage to vote, and God love it, it was an effort of thousands. Thank you.
Today was very insightful in thinking back to who we were in 1987, the day that this passed. And from my perspective, some important statistics. We did not have any open space at that time. There were 7 small parks, some of them very small. There were minimal programs. There wasn't 1 mile of trail. Today, 21 and a half years later, thanks to the original insight of the City Council and the Planning Commission allowing this crazy Parks Commission to envision all these things, we have over 40 miles of trail. We have thousands of acres of open space, and recently we have passed an open space district, so there will be thousands more acres of open space. We're continuing a green belt all the way around the city. We have over 20 parks. We have literally hundreds of programs for the community, for everything that you could possibly want to do. We were in such road deficit when we started as a city, we thought we'd never dig out, and I know that the figures were astronomical. Today we have built roads, and soon a $250 million road, the Cross Valley Connector from the I-5 to the 14, will finish its last bridge gap probably January of 2010. Amazing things have been accomplished. Planning Commission put in place all kinds of things that would protect design, create guidelines, create beautification, prevent deterioration of neighborhoods. The sign ordinance changed the entire vision, thank you Planning Commission, the entire visual feel of the community. And today we don't have signs sticking up everywhere. It's a lovely community. It is transformed. It is everything that everybody that worked so hard, thousands of people, to create. It is everything that we dreamed about having. And of course the job continues on generation after generation. But I'm so pleased and proud that the founders were willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work, and that those of us that got to be there, Parks Commission, Planning Commission, City Council members, that we were able to work on it and look today and enjoy the fruit of everyone's labor. Thank you.